Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 255 is here. This chapter is crazy. Sukuna lands a second Black Flash, we see another character that we didn't expect, and Yuji, Shoso, and Maki return to the fight. On top of that, we get an explanation as to why Gojo couldn't see the World Slash. The chapter starts where the last one ends. Alongside Miguel, we see LaRue. The narrator says, Team Geto come to save the day, and even LaRue enter the fray. Now, like Miguel, LaRue was one of Geto's commanders during the events of Jujutsu Kaisen 0. The appearance of LaRue makes a lot of sense because LaRue only wanted to see Suguru become king and unaligned himself with the other curse users after his death. LaRue has since become an ally of Yuki Tsukumo. On the next page, we jump into a flashback of Miguel discussing with Yuta and LaRue. Miguel rejects Yuta's request to fight Sukuna, saying there's no way that he would fight an opponent that may be able to beat Gojo Satoru. LaRue then tries to convince Miguel, saying, I'm just asking you to help us deliver the final blow to Sukuna, who'll be burned out after fighting Gojo. Yuta also adds that the fallout of the mass merger won't just stop at Japan, it would affect the whole world. But Miguel again declines their offer, saying, even if a Godzilla-sized cursed spirit comes and gives its best to my homeland, that would still be preferable to fighting Sukuna. Miguel adds that Gojo should have come to him with his head down in front of him to request him to help. After that, LaRue asks Yuta to have a private talk with Miguel. LaRue did everything because he wanted to follow Geto and make him a king. Miguel responds that he believed the same thing, and now that he trained Yuta in exchange for Gojo sparing his life, so he doesn't want to be involved with Japan anymore. LaRue adds that they should fight with everything they have and tell Geto to take care in heaven. This confirms what I said previously. In battle, Gojo doesn't have any mercy. Something that I really like when Gojo fights is that he doesn't show any mercy or empathy. On the contrary, you almost sympathize with whoever Gojo fights. So I was surprised when I saw Miguel alive, and with Gojo and Yuta at the end of Jujutsu Kaisen 0. In this chapter, we figure out that Gojo was impressed with Miguel to the point that he spared his life on the condition of training Yuta. Anyway, on the next page, Miguel says he has some conditions. He will fight Sukuna after Gojo and Yuta lose, and when Sukuna can't use his domain anymore. He also wants LaRue to join him in fighting Sukuna because it's better if he has more friends. Honestly, here I am confused because of the way that Yuta and Miguel's dialogue makes it like they were certain that Gojo will lose. Miguel says that he will fight after Gojo and Yuta lose, not if they lose. Maybe I am overthinking this, so take it with a grain of salt, but this dialogue makes it look like everything is going according to their plan. I'm not saying that Gojo's death was planned, I'm saying that Sukuna versus Gojo was plan A, and the Yuta and the others are plan B. Also, this shows the strategic side of Miguel. During the fight against Gojo, Miguel knew his limitations, he was aware that he couldn't win, so he just focused on stalling Gojo, allowing Geto to go after Yuta. And here we see that Miguel is doing the same thing. He knows that he has no chance of defeating a full power Sukuna, so all his conditions are intended to enhance his chances of winning. Now, back to the present. Miguel and LaRue are happy. They notice that Sukuna can't use domain expansion, his reverse curse technique has been weakened, and his heart isn't healed yet. LaRue uses his cured technique to grab hold of Sukuna and slams him to a wall. Sukuna sends slashes towards them, but Miguel easily ducks, dodges, and even jumps in between them. Miguel is breakdancing and avoiding all of Sukuna's attacks in style. Next, the narrator explains that LaRue's curse technique, Heart Catch, can grab the subject. The imaginary hand will restore itself even if it's destroyed, but a tenth of the damage will be redirected back to LaRue. Sukuna likes Miguel's technique, while thinking that LaRue's technique isn't interesting. Miguel's cursed technique is called Hakuna Lana. It helps his body to catch a rhythm, expel curses, and enhance his physical capabilities. Here we get to the controversial part of the chapter. We go to a short flashback of Gojo explaining Miguel's cursed technique to Yuta. Gojo says Miguel's cursed technique brings out buffs and debuffs of himself and the opponent without using a domain. Gojo adds that it's a pretty useful cursed technique, but not really a scary one. Gojo says Miguel's physical abilities are truly frightening. 99% of Jujutsu sorcerers are Japanese, and they use cursed energy to strengthen themselves. Gojo further adds that Miguel, who is a black muscular sorcerer, becomes a threat compared to a Japanese sorcerer. Miguel refutes Gojo's statement, saying Gojo is labeling him as that because he's black, and that's just discrimination. He states, "I'm not special because I'm black, I'm special because I'm me." And we get a hilarious interaction between Miguel, Gojo, and Yuta, because Gojo basically was stereotyping Miguel. This kind of interaction, in my opinion, is what makes Jujutsu Kaisen stand out and contributes to its appeal among fans. The fact that the only black character we've seen in Jujutsu Kaisen has a cursed technique that involves dancing is hilarious and slightly stereotypical. Gege Akutami's approach to addressing these stereotypes within the narrative rather than letting them pass without comment is a notable aspect of the storytelling. It adds layers to the characters and encourages readers to reflect on such representations within the context of the story. Back to the fight. Miguel grabs hold of Sukuna's arms and lands a heavy punch. Immediately, Sukuna's back is hit with Choso's supernova. Yuji rejoins the fight. He directly lands on Sukuna and slams him. The narrator explains that to activate World Slash, Sukuna has to use a hand sign named Enmaten, which is also used for Malevolent Shrine. But since Sukuna was left with just one arm after Gojo's final Hollow Purple, he used a binding vow to send World Slash on Gojo without a hand sign. But after transforming into his old form, Sukuna now has to use both, the hand sign Enmaten, and incantation to activate World Slash. On top of that, Sukuna also needs to set the direction for the slash with his hands. Next, Sukuna's left arm gets sliced off as he was confronting Yuji. It was Maki who cut off Sukuna's arm, and she does it with a crazed smile on her face. Sukuna is surprised to see Maki back even after receiving that black flash from him. Yuji proceeds to engage in the fight while thinking that Sukuna can't complete his hand sign because he's left with only 2 right arms and he can't use reverse cursed technique yet either, so they can win the fight now. But, as if to pour water on Yuji's hopes, Sukuna instantly hits LaRue with black flash. The narrator says Gojo regained his reverse curse technique output with his second black flash, so the King of Curses now may have regained his reverse curse technique. Now, when I saw Yuji thinking to himself that they were winning, I already knew the next page will show the opposite. Second Sukuna black flash, and a side note that Gojo had his RCT boosted only after second one, suggesting Sukuna will now fully heal again. If this happens, we're back to the point he was in after killing Higuruma, just with fewer resources to beat him up again. Anyway, I'm just glad Maki is alive. I don't know about you, but I feel like where we are right now is dangerously close to where Yuji was with Mahito in Shibuya when he had a glimmer of hope with Nobara stepping in to help only for everything to crumble right in front of him. Something about this chapter just eerily gave off those vibes when Yuji thought they were gonna win. I'm not sure how much further Sukuna can go, but if he regains his reverse curse technique capabilities and can also create another binding vow, I can only assume that he can use his domain expansion again, which would be very difficult to defend against. Another thing worth mentioning is, in chapter 249, Yuta said that Sukuna's reverse curse technique output was starting to return and that it wouldn't be long before he would be able to use his domain again. In other words, ever since his fight with Gojo, Sukuna had been exhausted but was slowly recovering until Yuji weakened him with his soul punches. So, if he recovers his reverse cursed technique after landing the second black flash, and with that his domain, he'll be in better condition than he's been since before Gojo died. Also, I wonder if the next black flash Sukuna will land is on Yuji. I feel like Sukuna will land another and then he will regain his domain expansion, and that's when the cast will be in huge trouble. Now, we truly don't know if Sukuna got back his RCT. The next chap will clear that fact. The narrator just used Gojo as an example here. The chapter ends with the editor's comment at the end, "The black light shines sinisterly, no break next week." In my opinion, it's kind of reassuring that Gege is starting to explain things more and more, albeit slowly. I appreciate how much thought went into the contingency plan after Gojo lost to Sukuna. It seems like everything so far has been somehow anticipated by the Jujutsu Kaisen heroes. I also like the explanation behind the mechanism for World Slash. It now makes sense how Yuta and Kusakabe can track Sukuna's slashes while Gojo can't see them. I also wonder what Sukuna surrendered to make that binding vow for World Slash. Maybe he gave Megumi's 10 shadows in exchange for World Slash. This is just a guess, though maybe we'll get an explanation in the next chapters. Because keep in mind, if Sukuna regains his cursed energy output after landing the second or even third Black Flash, he can use the 10 shadow technique and his domain expansion, which will be impossible for our heroes to fight against. So maybe Geiji will sacrifice the 10 shadows in exchange for World Slash. In my opinion, this chapter is as good as it gets. I mean, we got an action-packed chapter, and we got a lot of answers to our questions. First, we get to know how and why Miguel appeared at that exact moment. We learned about his curse technique, which in my opinion explained also how he was able to stall Gojo during the parade of 100 demons. Essentially, his cursed technique enhances his physical abilities while nerfing the cursed energy of his opponent. And we get an answer to something that has been bothering me since the battle with Gojo, which is why Gojo didn't see the World Slash coming, especially after seeing Maki and Kusakabe being able to predict it.